Welcome everybody to another video of Visual Basic Dynamic Objects. In our previous video, we learned and I taught you how to create text box, labels, drop down, and buttons dynamically throughout the course, which is the Visual Basic Dynamic Objects 101. So today we're gonna be working on retrieving data from dynamic objects. How do we retrieve that data? How can we access that data, and how can we loop through every dynamic object created so we can retrieve each data in each dynamic object that we desire. So if you have not seen Dynamic Objects 101, I suggest that you do so you can actually have a point of reference to what I'm going to teach you today. So today we will be let's create a new web form, and let's put dynamic object uh, 102. There we go. Now in this section we can actually copy paste some information from the other. Let's just use the first div, copy, paste. Okay, so we're going to be using text box, dynamic objects of a text box, and retrieving that data. So what else do we need to retrieve that data? We're going to be going to code behind. We're going to create text box. Okay, so let's put dim text b as new text box. I'm just setting up the data so we can actually start retrieving the information. Okay, so let's say we're gonna add one text box, so we put text b dot id equals text 1, text b dot attributes dot add place holder, and let's give it a name. Let's say first name or full name. Let's put full name. Okay, and then we're gonna call hold one, which is gonna be where we're gonna set our dynamic object. We're gonna put controls dot add text b. That's it for creating one text box dynamically. Now we also want to add a button. So why a button? Because the button is, when we click it, we want it to access that text box. And what is it going to retrieve from the text box? The information. Button 1, button dot text equal view data. view data. And then we're gonna go to hold one dot controls dot add button. Okay. Now, something that on my tutorial on Dynamic Objects 101 I did not show when creating buttons is that you can create the button right now and it will not access anything. It will just be a plain old submit button that cannot access the code behind. So we're gonna be doing this real quick. Protected. My mouse. Protected. Sub get data click sender as oh man, my head can't get through it. Sender, no, it's ES7 handler. Sender, sender as it's just supposed to be object. Well, let's just leave it like that right now, for now. And then we're gonna ask it to, let's find the text box. We want it to find control find this page to be more exact, that find control, and we wanted to find text 1, which is actually the text box that we're going to dynamically create, text 1, and then we're going to give it something, dim text as text box equal text 1. Okay, so in text, so we want to message box, we want a message to pop up stating what's inside text inside that text box. Put the string just to be sure, to string. Okay, right now it's not going to do anything because the button is not accessing this code. So what do? We do add handler button add handler button dot click slash add handler. Oh my god, my head think is add handler address of get data click. Okay, so when that button is created, we also are handling an handler which is saying button click. I want button click to be able to access get data once it's clicked. So once it's clicked, it's going to come to here and tell me what's inside that box. Do a message box and tell me what's inside that text box. If it's empty, it's going to be an empty message box. If it has data, it's going to be, the data is going to be shown. Right now, it's not going to show anything, so we're going to need to add the page load from one dot load, and we're going to add the create text box. Okay, so every time the page loads, it's going to create a text box and a button. Now, the metaphor out of this is that once that button, once we add information to that text box, we want the button to retrieve that data and lets us view that data on in a message box. Why? Because if you want to save that data, basically right here you put the code to save the data, which is inside the text box, into a database or for further references, either to your get data form, data bag, stuff like that, session query, to jump from one page to another. So right now, all we want is for that text box to, all we want is for that information inside that text box. Once the button is clicked, the add handler, when the button is created, gives us the address of where to find the data once we click that button, and that button is going to tell us find text box 1, which is dynamically created, and retrieve that information, give me what's inside that text box, and display it as a message box or in a message box. So let's try it out, see if there's any errors. Okay, see, full name, view data. I click view data and see, empty. So if I put Ramon Morales, fake name, but somebody will have that name. I put view data, then a message box is open saying Ramon Morales. If I say Ricardo, message box is going to say Ricardo. So we know that the data is actually functioning properly in the instance that once we click the view data, the text box information is sent to the get data protect text method, and that method is then retrieves the data from the text box and lets us view it in a message box. Okay, that's one data that we can see. So how can we do that with multiple text box? Well, we're gonna try that out right now. And sorry for me thinking out loud. It's just basically I'm doing this off top of my head, off the top of my head. I haven't planned it. I haven't basically done a work plan or business plan. I'm just winging it. I create it. You view it as I actually process every information, every error as we go through, which is basically trial and error. We try and try and try. So right here we're gonna do while. Okay, we're gonna need okay, dim first. Let's get a count. Dim cs integer equals 0, and then I'm gonna do while 0 or do while c is less than let's say 3, because we want 3 text box. Loop, and we want all this data because we want 3 text box. Three text box will be created. It's good to document once you get into the habit of creating long code, because if you document, you actually, when you go back to it, say a week from now or a month from now or a year from now, you know exactly what you did and what that code actually does, and you don't have to actually read it and start processing bits and bits of code when the code is basically like 100 pages, 200 pages long. So it will help you actually analyze the code that was written either by you or by a different person. So get into the habit to actually commentate. It will help. It will help you in the long run, and almost always in the short run too. So let's keep it like that. Okay, since this is going to be automated text box, we don't want to create the placeholder, because the placeholder is basically if you know exactly what each text box is going to have. So right now we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to use the integer, the C integer, as our common denominator to get to note which text box is which. So text box 0, text box 1, text box 2. That integer is gonna give us the difference between one text box from another. In other words, changing their ID. And then we go here, we go C equals C plus 1, or you can go C plus equals C, or C plus equal 1, and that should do the same. Okay, and right here always you want to do the text box equals new text box, because each text box is going to be a new instance of itself. A new instance of itself. Remember that if you do not go back and create a new text box, give the command to create a new instance of a text box, all it will do is take that first text box and create the same one over and over again, but it will only have one text box. It will be shown in the browser. Okay, we got that. Okay, let's see that we have all the, let's run it so we can actually see those three text boxes. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we got 3. We got 3. Okay. And we can do something real quick. Yeah, we can add the placeholder. Let's add the placeholder. Let's add a select case C. And if C equals 0, then text B dot attributes dot add slash placeholder. It's gonna be, oh my bad, first name. Okay, let me copy, paste 2 more times, 1 and 2. Let's put right here last name, and let's say here state. Okay, so when C equals 0, which is the first instance, it will run this code. Add this as the placeholder. When it runs again, it's going to be a value of 1. It's going to run this placeholder. When it runs again, be number 2, it will run this placeholder. So that should give us a variety of name, and given each text box its own property. So let's view it in the browser. So you can see first name, last name, and state. You can add, restrict how many characters. You can say if it's only numbers, a date. But in this case, we just leaving it as simple as possible so you can actually see how it works. As you can see, we created 3 text boxes. We added 3 different types of placeholders using the select case clause, and we're using a do while. So don't you ever forget to increment that C value, because if it doesn't increment, it will stay in a loop forever. Now this is the tricky part. How do we retrieve each information from each value? In this case, we can either do it, I believe, 2 different ways. We can either go text, say here goes 0, here goes 2. Let's name this one 1. 1, and this one 2. And we can go text to string. Let's say copy, comma paste. Change this one to 1 and this one to 2, and then add some space to it, 2 points. text to the string. Okay, I'll fix it right now. I don't know what the problem is. And okay, and we're gonna do and space and space. Basically, using like commas, you gotta use the and. The plus, you use it to actually sum integer value. Okay, so right now, if I write anything, sorry about that. If I write anything in my browser, let's give it a refresh real quick. Okay, let's put 1 de colores from Texas. We view the data. As you can see, it says 1 de colores, 2 dots Texas. That's one way of doing it. Now let's see what's the other way that we can actually do it. The other way we can actually do this could be to loop in and out of each page control. So I can go like this. Okay, I think I got an idea. I go, let me cancel this out. Okay. I go dim text as text box, right? And then we're gonna do counter dmc as integer equals 0, and then we're gonna do a do while c is less than 3. That's because we know it's 3. Loop. Then text equals page dot find control. It's gonna be, we know that the text was gonna be text, but text what? Text and C, which is basically gonna add the letters txt and the value of C. Let's increment C. Can never forget, plus equal 1. Let's see, plus equal 1. And then we want it to be displayed in a message box. Okay, so we can do it separately. Let's do it separately, so we have a separate message box for each object, dynamic object that we created for each, in other words, for each text box. Text dot text dot to string. Okay, so what this will do is every time the do while is summoned and it's run process, it will give me that value. So in other words, text 0, give me what's inside the text in that text box. Text 1, give me what's inside that text box. And then text 2, give me what's inside that text box, the value, the information, the variables inside that text box. So let's run it. Okay, so let's do a refresh. Let's put here Maria, flamenco, and let's put here Florida. So if I click it first, it's first supposed to give me her first name, and then it's gonna give me her last name, and then it's gonna give me the state that she lives in. So as you can see, that's one way. That's the second way, my bad. The second way to actually retrieve data of a text box. So if you don't know how many text boxes were created, you could actually create a label. Yeah, we can create a label that says exactly how many text boxes you create it, show it invisibly on the web page, or visible just in case if it's needed, so you could actually have it visible. Say three dynamic objects were created, or three web forms were created, something like that. And then right here you would retrieve that number and use that integer as your counter, as your C value. No, I'm mistaken. Yeah, I'm mistaken. Yeah, I said it the opposite way. Instead of using it as your counter, you use it as your max value. So basically, the max as integer will equal 3. And then this value right here will be max. So if that label value is 3, you will get that value right here. That value will be shown here. You will give max that same value and you will place it here. Or you can just directly put it into that place, this place right here. And that's one way you could know how many dynamic objects were created. Okay, so what if I want to show them all just like this text box right here, this message box that we had when we first created this code that we first created that gave us everything in just one line. So to do that, we're going to be creating a string. Dim dt a as string. Blah, 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 string. Let's put equal nothing just in case. And then we're going to do dta dot text plus equal text dot text to string, but we're gonna add a space in between each value. My bad, it's not a text box, so it's dta plus equal text dot text. And then we're gonna do message box dta dot to string, and that should give us all the information. Instead of having to call each dynamic object one by one, right here we're calling them using one object to call our max dynamic object created and viewing each dynamic object as one sentence. So let's give it a try, give it a go, give it a refresh. Okay, so basically it actually did it for me because I said refresh instead of reloading the web page from 0. Okay, so let's reload it from 0. Let's put Brian O'Connor, and let's put New York, and we view the data. As you can see, Brian O'Connor, New York, we have it all in one straight line, one straight sentence. So if you want all the information to be placed in one area, you can do that. If you don't, then you can actually retrieve the data as separate parts of each object. So we basically we can take 3 objects and create one message, or using a base database wise 3 objects and use those 3 objects and put them in one column of our database, or we can take the 3 objects and put them in 3 different columns, and we can also do it combined. So we can use object 1 and 2 for one column and object 3 on the second column. So we're basically using 2 columns out of 3 objects that we created. So it's not hard. You just have to actually work with it and actually experiment. That's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm experimenting. I'm creating dynamic objects, basically dynamically out of my head. As you can see, I do get errors. It's not rehearsed, so I do get errors, as you will get errors. So you will start learning to brainstorm with yourself to find out how to make your code better, how to shorten your code. Because right now, if I use this, is basically I have to know what those 3 dynamic objects are, as to oppose right here where I can create a set amount of dynamic objects and create, let's say, a label. Let's do that. Let's create a label. Okay, let's dim LBO as new label. That's new label, right, and let's put I as integer. Okay, and then we're gonna need here, let's say, I could have a text box. I could add a text box that actually tells me how many dynamic objects I want to create, right? I could have that, but right now let's just say that right here I put the value of 4 dynamic objects that I want to create, the dynamic text box that I want to create, and then that label. Right here we go, I, and you can go label right here. Go label dot text equals 0, and then go here and say label dot text equal plus equal 1. Okay, and just give this label an ID. Label dot ID equal LBL counter. You can give them any name you would like. Then right here we're gonna be doing okay, we're gonna dim label as label equal page dot find control, and we're gonna call that label LBL counter. And then right here as max value, I'm gonna put the value LBL dot text, and that should give me the max amount of information, basically the max amount of dynamic objects that I created at that instance. So let's go here, refresh. We should have 4 text box without text order. Why? Because I didn't put a value in it. So right here, let's go 1 Jose, Miami, Florida. So we should have all 4 data in one message box. Oh, we got a problem. Okay, so what is telling us that that's an object. Okay, so let's see what happened. First, let's create a message box, and let's see if we are reading from that text box, if we're reading any information out of that text box. Okay, let's go refresh, continue. Okay, message text box. Okay, I'm not retrieving anything from that text box, and you want to know why? Because I know why. It's because we have not added that text box to our control. So once the loop is over, let's add it. Let's add that text box to our holder. LBO. It's not going to retrieve a data that is not existent in our web page. So now I'm making it existing. Why? Because I'm adding it to the web page using the controls add methods and properties. My bad, properties. So right now let's go refresh, continue. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So right there we have 1, 2, 3, 4 text box with a value of 4. As you can see, it's visible. And I click view data. The view data then retrieves that number 4 and tells me that there are 4 dynamic objects created. Dynamic objects, in other words, text box created. And we want those 4 informations to be displayed in the message box. So we got Juan Jose, Miami, Florida. As you can see, dynamic objects you can retrieve data from them. You can recreate them and you can create as many as you want, as long as you actually know how to implement and retrieve that data from those dynamic objects. Okay, so you can see a bit of text. That value became our max value. Let's say we want let's say we want a text box. So let's do this the quick way. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. We're gonna add a text box. Toolbox. Text box. Text box. Text box. And then we're gonna add a button. 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 Okay. Text box 1 is gonna be an integer. So that integer is gonna be display how many dynamic objects I want to create at one time. And we'll give each dynamic object its own identification. Okay, so the text box is gonna be an integer, and the button is gonna tell us how many dynamic objects we're gonna be creating. So we're gonna go here. Let's go straight with this button click. And then in the button click function, we're gonna take this, we're gonna place it here, and we're gonna put text box 1 dot text. It's gonna be shown here. Okay, let's see if we can actually tell that this box is only supposed to have text mode. Yeah, text mode. Mode equal number. So only numbers will be inside of that text box. Why? Because we're designating that text box to be only numeric value, a numeric value. So once we click the button 1 to create, let's give it a name too. Button 1, let's put create objects, create dynamic objects. Okay, and then that dynamic object is going to be created. Let's see if that's true. It's right here. Let's reload the page from 0. How many dynamic objects do you want to create? So we want to create, let's say 8. Create 8 dynamic objects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, the label says 8. And we're going to add data. Let's say 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 and then okay. So it's supposed to take all that data and just put it separate, but in one message. Let's view the data. Oh, so it was refreshed. Now let's see what caused that refresh. Okay, so control. So right here, Get data click. It did not create the message box. Why did not create the message box? It did not create the message box because it did not get to get data. Click. Did not get to get data. Click. The page was refreshed beforehand. So if the page was refreshed beforehand, this is not supposed to happen because create text box or create an dynamic object, nothing's making it refresh. Okay, so if I were to create this and view data, it gets erased. So how do we maintain the value of that? So view data, bottom one, button one, center. See, I was right. Center as object, yes, elements. So something is wrong. Something's not making it process. So it could be the refresh button. Something is refreshing the control. Textbox 1 and now this post back. Let's see if it's in this area the problem. See, it won't create with this post back. So if it is a post back, create 8 and then view data is gonna erase. Why does it reset? That is the question. Why does it reset when button is supposed to retrieve the data from get data click? See, now that's how we find problems when you try to actually implement even additional information. So let's try to find the solution. How do we find the solution? What is causing the problem? Something is causing the problem. Okay, let's run it like this. So it's exactly where is it causing the problem. Supposed to get data. Once it gets to get data, supposed to come back with the information as a message. Okay, we got to create view data. It doesn't get to get data. So if it does not get to get data, actually does not get to here, it basically goes here, creates this, but this is not being viewed. So if that is not being viewed, then we got a problem because we actually need it to loop back. So it's basically the post back action that's creating that data to be lost. Let's see if we take this and put it straight here without using a button. Will it have the same effect as we can add text box 1 dot auto post back equal true. And this does not go there. This goes on text box text change. There. Okay, let's try that. See if anything happened. Well, let's so if I put 4, I get 4. View data, I still don't get the message box. So we are having a problem in retrieving the data when we want to actually get a maximum amount of text box. Oh, I had this problem one time creating a website. I just can't remember my solution. I know the solution. Just can't get it out of my head. I can't get it out of my head. Where is it? What's my solution? What is my solution? To click get data. Whereas object is event arguments. Power view data. So also have the same process. So we're still not getting why it keeps resetting. 2, 3, 4. View data resets. Three. But I want to view that data. So well, there's ways to actually work around it. Basically, I believe you could go to Toolbox. I just came up with an idea. See, everything comes up. Add a script manager. Inside the script manager, I'll talk later on about script manager update panels. Update panel. Inside the update panel, we're going to use content template. Inside the content template, we're going to add this div, which is basically supposed to only update this area once the data is changed. So let's try this. This is a good idea, actually a good solution for our problem. Okay, let's go here. 1, 2, 3. Let's put A, SSS, BBB, view data, and we still get the same problem. So if we still get the same problem, let's see. There's something. Update mode. Let's put conditional just in case. Let's try it again. View data. It does not show the information. Something's wrong and I don't know what. What if I put that text box inside this content template? Let's remove this. We're not doing anything. Go back. Reload. 1, 2. I don't get no message box. No message box. Something. I still don't understand what it is. Maybe you, the viewers, know exactly what's the problem. But in my instance, I cannot see what the problem is. So, this creates. This is not being processed. The address of get data click is not being processed for that button ID. It just does not show because once you click the button, it creates a post back of that instance. But so it's something here. It has to do with this. Yes, it has to do with this. So if it has to do with this, and that creates a post back. So basically, if I set it here, I go if is post back, then do this. Okay, so if I place it in there as a post back, will it resolve my issue of not showing the message box? Let's try it. Refresh. 1, 2, 3. I go A, S, oops. I go F here. View data. Yes, that is the problem. So, as you can see, we actually made the text box better with its own auto post back. We found out what was the problem. Why was it refreshing our dynamic objects? So it was refreshing our dynamic objects. Oh, sorry about that. It was refreshing our dynamic objects because of the web form. So once the web form knew how many objects were created, it recreated those dynamic objects. So as you could see, we have problems, we have issues, we have errors that we have to correct, but that is the way a programmer has to think. A programmer will be faced with a lot of obstacles. Once you start getting more advanced in your coding, and your coding gets longer and longer, you will have error, and you will have to actually go through that code and find where it is. Usually it will give you a sign, tells you, well, the problem is inside this code and it's on line 34. Then you get to line 34 and you're like, oh, okay, that's working fine. So something that is between line 34 or works with line 34 of your code example is giving you an error and it's not processing. In this case, the problem was that the form load does not know how many dynamic objects were created, and that is why I had to remove the create text box from the text box text change option, which we basically do not need anymore. All we need is the auto post back to be active, and those text box will be recreated every post back, but retain the data inside of them. As you could see, the message box was created successfully. So as we move along in the session, my mission is to actually create a whole website of only dynamically created objects. So on lesson 1, we learned how to create dynamic objects of different kinds. On lesson 2, we learn how to create dynamic objects out of Textbox and a dynamic button that retrieves how many objects, dynamic objects, Textbox we created and retrieve the data inside those dynamic objects. It's a little bit complicated, a little bit long. So basically, in short terms, the dynamic objects we created, we retrieve the data. We could have created 20 and we would have retrieved 20 values out of those dynamic objects. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment area. I will get back to you. I will teach some more. If you have any ideas of any dynamic objects you want me to create a video on, I will do so just like right now, which is basically get on the computer, open your Visual Studio application, and let's dig in. My errors, the errors that I go through could be the errors that you possibly will go through, and you could have challenges on the way. And probably those challenges, you see how I come up with ideas to actually overcome those challenges. And we work as a group, as a team. So leave your message, leave your comments. And if you have, like I said, any idea or any errors while you were doing this code, leave them in the comment area. I will get back to you. I could even create a video of your liking. So just tell me what type of video you would like, and I will create that video explaining step by step how to get from point A to point B or point A to point D, depending how many steps are in your explanation or the type of example that you want me to create. So guys, thank you for watching, and until next time.